Bench has always been taking risks.
It started as a hangar type of business.
It's visionary, Bencha. He really loves the Filipinos and that whatever product he creates is a service to them.
He really glamorized t-shirts.
No matter what the trends are, they always focus on the product.
And it's a homegrown brand.
Innovator, trendsetter, and entrepreneur, Ben Chan founded a small t-shirt business in 1987. 30 years later, the store grew and became what we know today as Bench. But how did a small kiosk become the country's most influential clothing brand?
Back in 1987, it was really very segmented. Couture, department store brands, the in-house brands, very strict delineations. So if you were a model who modeled couture, that was it. Or if you were in show business, you were in show business. The wonder, really, that Bench did in 1987 was that they broke down those barriers. Someone like Richard Gomez, who was known as an actor, could embody a fashion brand.
Well, Richard Gomez and the Bench as a fashion brand had a lot of things to inspire us. Since Richard was the image model, he kind of represents the bench man, the ideal man, something that bench followers can aspire for. Because sculling is a very, very difficult sport. It's like conquering the water. And you just move a little bit and you're going to, the boat will capsize, the scull will capsize. So we wanted to bring out that man who has this control over his destiny, over his environment.
Before the Scholar's Life, a year before that, we were already doing ads, pero for photo shoot lang, hindi pa TV ad. After a few months, doon nag-decide si Ben na gawa tayo ng ad. So when they showed the concept, and I was doing rowing already at the time, sabi niya, why don't we make an ad na nagro-rowing?
When we made it, we kind of didn't want it to be very trendy. In fact, we were maybe not the ideal people to work with. I mean, we weren't really an ad agency. We had a creative consultancy, so I mean, they could have gone to all the big ad agencies to do their first ad. So, like, why work with, you know, a small boutique like ours? But then I guess maybe that's what worked for it because we were not in the industry really. It was our very first TV commercial.
Well, it was really more of a cinematographer's ad, no? Because we just had to put Richard in a bench outfit, and we really didn't want to date it.
The second was Lamuro,
Which was someone, the thinking man.
It was black and white, and here, her bench comes into the picture with Joan Zapanta representing her bench. And then the third ad is the riding ad when he's on a horse. So this is like maybe after marriage already and family, and he's out on a journey to think and to rediscover himself.
Richard Gomez, he's the perfect storm because he's tall, dark, and handsome. He also has so many dimensions to him. He is aware that fashion is not just fashion, that there's pop culture in it, that there's history in it.
I was a very young actor then. I was beginning. Then Bench also was not yet established at the time. Parang sabay na lang kami lumaki. And then for a few years, magkasama kami na gumagawa ng mga projects together. And basically, I grew up with Bench and so did Bench. Nag-click lang yun. Nag-click lang ako at saka Bench. And then the people liked it. They liked the brand. They liked the image.
In general, people loved it, I think. It was very successful.
It was a sensation, actually.
Yeah, because it was the first time something like that was attempted. Nobody ever saw anything like that on local
very
TV.
Quiet ad, you don't. Just when you hear the music, you know it's Bench. You don't have to watch it. But the image would stick in your mind, diba? Just by hearing the music.
I was also surprised with the end product together with the music. I didn't think at the time na ganun pala yung magiging effect na Clear the Loon and the images of the scholar's life. So when it first came out, when I first saw it, sabi ko, medyo tumayo yung balahibo ko. Sabi ko, what a fantastic ad. And true enough, the following year, ang dami niya pinanalo ng mga awards.
They really wanted to create a narrative. They knew that they were breaking barriers. They knew that they were not going to fit the mold. It's very easy to take a picture of a good-looking person, but to have so much texture and nuance, that sense of wanting to change the medium, define the industry, is very rare. And that, I think that's why it is so enduring, it's so unforgettable, it sets the mark. To use a pun, it was and still is the benchmark for how a celebrity endorsement should be.
Bench pioneered the use of television ads, billboards, and celebrity endorsers, game changers in the local fashion industry. One of its ultimate endorsers, Lucy Torres Gomez, recalls her first campaign.
My first campaign with Bench, that was also the campaign. They took pictures of me. I remember the photographer saying then, there's something different about you now. And at that time, I didn't know I was already pregnant with Juliana. I think my being with Bench is really just icing on the cake because I've been a fan of Bench. I was in high school and it was the first local brand to be so in with the people very obsessed with everything imported. So here was this brand that was very forward. They just happened to have this endorser that I was in love with. I remember my folder in high school was a Bench folder. My notebooks were Bench campaigns of his that I would cut out. Eventually, I was doing campaigns for her Bench, and when I got pregnant, we did a baby Bench. Juliana's been shooting for Bench, baby Bench pa siya, and then naging tweener, baby Bench, kinder Bench. It's a business relationship that has turned into a real friendship. It's family already.
I think yung imagery ng Bench talaga gives a lasting impression. I think Bench remained relevant because it kept up with the times. It stayed true to its heritage. Si Goma, andyan pa din siya. But you also have these new set of talents that represent the brand, represent a new generation naman, but still looking back at the original ones. The first thing I did for Bench was their summer campaign. It was shot in the Bench factory. They had like these colorful crates and illustrations. It was a fun shoot. Most memorable was when I did the holiday fragrance campaigns. Georgina, Belle, Lovey, they all had fragrances at the time. So I did the holiday version of their campaigns. And it was my first time na lahat ng billboard sa Guadalupe was mine. It was a big moment for me. And the following year naman, I was on the billboard naman for Human in Guadalupe.
I think all the people who have been on the billboards, it's like a diploma. It's like, this is when I graduate to household name level, when I've done a Bench billboard. Because it's visibility, it's a stamp of approval, it's a mark that you've arrived.
Pictures make a lasting impression. And I hope that at least one of the pictures I took for Bench would make a lasting impression on someone too.
And I'm endlessly proud to be part of a brand that has grown globally but has remained at its core very passionate about everything local.
I think the biggest satisfaction is that Bench has always been proud to be a Filipino brand. And to see a Filipino brand compete with the world's best brands always gives you pride as a Filipino. I think two of the most exciting projects is working on Tokyo Fashion Week and New York Fashion Week. They were both first. No other Filipino brand has ventured in presenting side by side with the world's best. And I think it was another way of making the brand global.
I remember that 2 years ago, they started doing international campaigns. And in fact, this year, when I attended the meet and greet of Jeremy John C. at Mega Mall. I met these they just started a travel IG site. When they arrived and then they saw the bench shops and they saw Jeremy's campaign, they just assumed that Bench was an international brand. When we said, well, there are branches internationally, but it's a brand that was conceptualized and born here and everything, and they were surprised. They just assumed when they saw the shops, they saw the setup of the meet and greet, they saw that Jeremy was going to be posting about it. They just assumed. So there's really a global flavor to it.
I think what makes Bench stand out, whether locally or internationally, it's its love for the country. It has always taken pride in its being Filipino. As a matter of fact, a lot of its designs are inspired by our culture. So whether you're here in the Philippines, whether you are there in Tokyo or in New York, there's always that spirit of the Filipino that makes it different from the rest. It's not forced, it just comes out naturally. But the fact that it always takes pride as a brand that was born in the Philippines makes a lot of difference.
When you're in New York or Paris or London, that people know what it is and they know it's Filipino, it uplifts the Filipino in general and the Philippines as a country.
They never forget the roots. For example, when there was the Bench times Rafi collaboration, even if Rafi Totenko's brands has Rafi New York, he always says that his influences, his love for color and print really was born of his Bacolod childhood. Wanting to meld international and local elements is so quintessentially Filipino. That balance of knowing our roots, but always being curious about what's going on in the world, I think keeps Bench very Filipino.
For 30 years, Bench continues to create world-class designs. It speaks of our country's rich heritage and captures the interests of its diverse shoppers.
I think what makes Bench different from the other local brands is really the love for the market. There is always an urge to give something more than just a t-shirt. There is always an effort to excite you, say, in the choice of endorsers, in the choice of, say, packaging, in the choice of the store experience. So it's really that extra effort. It's really that extra push to give you something more than what you expect.
I remember this SM North EDSA. It was the first of the super malls. So that was the late 80s. So when I entered, I really sensed something different. They really tried to create an atmosphere in the store. It wasn't just, let's display the shirts here, jeans here, things. No, it really had a feel of a curated store. And that's something that I feel to this day is still felt when I'm inside the Bench store. I know that they thought about the atmosphere. Things inside the store contribute to the experience of buying. It makes the shopping experience more elevated.
I think Bench has something for everyone. I think it has reached a point when you can just wear Bench every day, whether it's the gel you put on your hair, the underwear that you wear on a daily basis, the jacket that you wear on a Friday night. There's always something for you.
It's so relatable because it understands that fashion is both necessity and expression. So on one hand, you will always find in Bench components to fill your needs, but at the same time, you will find elements from international fashion and local fashion that can bring out a spark in you, that will bring out the hidden creative soul in you. It's everything that fashion should be. It answers your day-to-day needs, but it also lets you express yourself.
The primary reason why it has become that is that Ben, as a visionary, always believes in good design, and his mission is to bring good design to the Filipinos in affordable prices.
I think the soul of Bench, the brand, is also Ben Chan, the man, because he's insatiably curious. He is an eternal seeker. That's why he travels so much. He wants to know what's going out there.
I think the secret of Bench is really Ben Chan, because Ben Chan is Bench. It comes from his name. It comes from his love for the country. It comes from his creativity.
It's Ben's personal touch, I think, that translates to the merchandise. They're very in touch with what the young ones like.
Ben's a trendsetter.
I am also a creative who works with him, but a lot of times I get so surprised that he is more daring than me. Sometimes when we are in brainstorms, there are a lot of ideas which I think might be too shocking or too new or too risky for the Philippine market, but he has that gut instinct and he goes for it. So I think it's really more him, because his kind of creativity has always been out of the box.
As a person, he's very warm. As a businessman, he's a visionary. I don't think Bench would be able to still be this relevant if the people behind it were not creative and full of big dreams. I think that's what's important. You have to keep your dreams fresh, and that's what's admirable about Ben. He never rests on his laurels, because if you really think about it, he has nothing to prove. The brand has nothing to prove. It has been around, it has been relevant, it has been on top of its game for all of 30 years, but they're still counting.
Ben's a very nice person, very quiet. He's a fun person to be with. Sometimes, sabi niya, oh, we'll shoot sa Zambales. May dala kaming aso, then we shot that man's best friend. I was seated on a bench together with a dog. Ganun lang. And then when I went home with that dog. Binigyan ni Ben yung dog sa akin, the German Shepherd.
I think what sets him from others is that he's a risk-taker and a visionary. He is not afraid to take on new things. He is not afraid to give a go signal to ideas without any study, just that feel. I don't think any proper business entity or any proper business person would make decisions just on gut feel. Sometimes being out of the box can also be rewarding. Being out of the box and going for the vision is really the main thing that will set you apart from the others who just follow a formula.
The reason why I still like working with Bench is that they are open to always new ideas. When you present a good idea to him, he'll say, yes, okay, let's do it. He really gives a platform for young creatives to do what they want.
He values the gifts of his people. By gifts, I mean the talents of the people he works with. So yeah, he's all about celebrating strengths and making that work together for this brand that we know now as Bench. Beyond what they do and what they've accomplished as a global brand, I like that they always give back. I like that they're very conscious about helping their people improve their lives. They have CSR programs. That's why they've grown so much, and they're blessed that way because they do things ethically and they always give back.
Bench as a brand is unique. That's why it's successful. He's up to trend with everything.
It's always ahead of its time.
As someone, yes, who has been observing fashion for many years, the constant will be what's out there. And I think that Bench will continue to bring the latest, the newest, the most exciting, but with adding that Bench flavor.
Bench's 30th anniversary not only marks the brand's success, but that of its continuous journey to provide affordable and premium quality products to the Philippines and the rest of the world. It embodies excellence as it strives to be one of the best world brands, but in its core, a brand that's proudly Filipino.